Friend, I want you to travel with me tonight back to the year 1851. To a land soaked in cotton, sweat, and sin. A land where chains clinked like church bells, and every sunrise meant another day of bondage. There stood a grand plantation house, white columns reaching toward heaven, but the cries inside whispered straight from hell. Inside those walls lived a secret that even the devil dared not tell. It was not the crops that cursed that land. It was desire, it was obsession, and it was born in the form of one enslaved soul. Neither holy man nor holy woman, but both. A hermaphrodite slave. The master called it an abomination. The mistress called it curiosity. But both, in their hidden hearts, called it temptation. This was no ordinary servant. This was a being whose very existence challenged the order of that cruel world. Where men ruled, women obeyed. And slaves were supposed to be invisible. But this one, oh, this one could not be ignored. The master watched with burning fascination. The wife watched with trembling wonder. And slowly, sin began to whisper through the night air. You see, lust is a patient poison. It waits in the corners of lonely bedrooms. It breathes in the spaces between power and weakness. And on that plantation, lust began to rule both master and mistress alike. The master would summon the slave for his pleasure, while the wife, burning with jealousy and curiosity, would do the same behind his back. And what began as secret indulgence became a sickness of the soul. That house turned into a battlefield of desire. The man, once proud, was now enslaved by what he possessed. The woman, once pure in her piety, was consumed by what she could not understand. They thought they owned that slave, but it was the slave who ruled their nights. It was the slave who commanded their dreams. And it was the slave who revealed what sin truly looks like when it walks in human flesh. Oh, the neighbors began to whisper. The servants began to tremble, because they saw what the world could not bear to name. A house divided not by race, but by lust, envy, and the breaking of God's order. The preacher came once, and he said, sin has found its home here. But no sermon could cleanse that soil. No prayer could bind what passion had unchained. The master grew violent, the wife grew desperate, and the one they had both used stood silent, carrying within that fragile body the weight of their shame. Some said the wife ran mad. Some said the master fell dead by poison. Others whispered that the slave vanished one night, leaving behind a house filled with screams that never stopped echoing. But hear me, friends. This story is not about scandal. It is about the sickness of the soul when power and desire unite. It is about how sin does not care if you wear silk or chains. It comes for all who forget the sacredness of flesh and spirit. For what profit is it to own the whole plantation, if your heart is owned by the very lust you hide in darkness? What freedom is there in power, if the soul is shackled to temptation? That hermaphrodite slave, nameless in history, became the mirror of their corruption. For in trying to own what they could not understand, they were destroyed by their own hunger. And I say to you tonight, when humanity tries to play God, when desire becomes dominion, when we treat flesh as property instead of creation, destruction will always follow. Let this tale of 1851 be a warning. Because sin wears many faces. Sometimes white, sometimes black, sometimes even both in one body. And when obsession replaces compassion, when lust replaces love, when pride replaces humility, then every house becomes a plantation of sorrow. So remember this. The body is not a battlefield for power. The spirit is not a tool for pleasure. And the soul belongs to God alone. Because even in the chains of 1851, truth was crying out from the cotton fields, that no one truly owns another, and no desire, no matter how secret, escapes the judgment of heaven. And tonight, I ask you, what are you enslaved to? Because every